Jessica, come help your cousin Emily. Tell everyone about her internship at Goldman Sachs. My mother's voice carried across our dining room, dripping with the same pointed enthusiasm she always used when showcasing my cousin's achievements. It was Thanksgiving 2017, and our suburban New Jersey home was packed with relatives, all gathered around a table, groaning under the weight of turkey, stuffing, and unspoken family tensions. I reluctantly emerged from the kitchen where I'd been, hiding, pretending to help with the cranberry sauce while actually scrolling through job listings on my phone. At 19, I was the family disappointment at community college dropout working part-time at a coffee shop while trying to figure out what to do with my life. There she is. My father's booming voice announced my arrival as if I were a tardy employee to a board meeting. Emily was just telling us about her summer at Goldman. Isn't that something? 20 years old and already set for life. Emily, perfectly poised in her cashmere sweater, smiled apologetically at me. It wasn't her fault. None of my cousins asked to be weaponized against me. It was just an internship, Uncle Robert, she said modestly. I still have 2 years of college left. But at Princeton, my mother chimed in, placing her hand on Emily's shoulder. Just like her sister did before getting into Yale Law. The subtext was clear to everyone at the table. Why can't you be more like them? I forced a smile and took my seat, feeling the familiar weight of inadequacy settle over me like a shroud. My Aunt Meredith, always trying to be kind, turned to me. And what about you, Jessica? How's the coffee shop going? Before I could answer, my father let out a short laugh. Oh, Jessica's just taking her time figuring things out. Some people are late bloomers, right, honey? The way he said late bloomers made it sound like a terminal diagnosis. Actually, I started summoning courage. I've been looking into photography programs. The community college has a good photography, my mother interrupted, her eyebrows shooting up, honey. That's not a real career. It's a hobby. It could be a career. I insisted. It's been researching. Research won't pay student loans, my father cut in, or rent, or health insurance. This is exactly the problem, Jess. You don't think practically. I felt my cheeks burning as everyone at the table suddenly became very interested in their mashed potatoes. Robert, my Aunt Meredith said softly, I think it's wonderful that Jessica is exploring creative fields. My father shook his head. Meredith, with all due respect, when she's living in our basement at 30. Creative exploration won't seem so wonderful. I won't be living in your basement, I said, my voice quivering despite my efforts to sound confident. No, my father challenged. Then what's the plan, Jessica? Because from where I'm sitting, you're on track to be nothing. Absolutely nothing. The table fell silent. Even my mother looked uncomfortable. Robert, she murmured, not at Thanksgiving. But something had snapped inside me. 5 years of being compared to my cousins. 5 years of having my interests dismissed as frivolous. 5 years of being told in ways both subtle and explicit that I was a failure. You know what? Said, standing up so abruptly that my water glass tipped over. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Jessica, my mother warned, don't make a scene. A scene? I laughed. A hollow sound that surprised even me. Heaven forbid I embarrass you by expressing feelings at the precious family dinner. God knows that would be worse than you to publicly humiliating me every chance you get. We're trying to motivate you, my father said, his face reddening. Someone has to be realistic about your future. No, you're not trying to motivate me. You're trying to control me, to force me into some predefined box of success that makes you look good at country club brunches. I looked around the table at my relatives' shocked faces. My younger brother Tyler stared at his plate. My cousins looked mortified. Only my grandmother met my gaze, a strange mixture of sadness and pride in her eyes. I'm done, I said finally. I'm done trying to meet impossible standards. I'm done being the family failure. Jessica Marie Thompson. My mother stood up now too, You apologize right now and sit back down? I shook my head. I'm leaving. And I'm going to make something of myself, not because you think I should, but in spite of you believing I can't. I walked out of the dining room, ignoring my mother's calls to come back. In my bedroom, I grabbed the emergency backpack I'd been slowly packing for weeks' clothes, toiletries, my camera, and the $1,200 I'd saved from my coffee shop job. I'd been planning this escape for months, just waiting for the right moment. Apparently, that moment was Thanksgiving dinner. As I headed for the front door, my grandmother appeared in the hallway. "Jessie," she said softly, pressing something into my hand. "Take this." It was an envelope. Inside was $500 in cash. "Grandma, I can't." "Yes, you can," she said firmly. "I believe in you. Always have. Just promise me you'll be safe and you'll call me sometimes." I hugged her tightly, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender and peppermint. "I promise." Parents appeared at the end of the hallway. My father's face still flushed with anger, my mother's with panic. "Jessica, don't be ridiculous," my father said. "Where will you even go?" "Anywhere but here," I replied, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "I'd rather be homeless than spend another day being told I'm nothing." "You're being dramatic," my mother said, her voice rising. "This is what we mean about your poor decision-making." I opened the front door, letting in a blast of cold November air. "I'll show you decision-making," I said. "I'm deciding right now that I deserve better than this. It's better than you." The look of shock on their faces almost made me waver. Almost. But then I remembered all the times they'd made me feel small, inadequate, worthless. I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me, standing on the porch of my childhood. Home, backpack slung over my shoulder. I felt a dizzying mixture of terror and exhilaration. I had no concrete plan, just a desperate need to escape and a fragile belief that somewhere, somehow, I could build a life where I wasn't defined by my failures. I walked to the end of our manicured driveway and didn't look back. The sky was darkening, promising snow. Thanksgiving dinner would continue without me. My cousins would excel without an audience. My parents would explain away my absence as another disappointment. But for the first time in years, felt something like hope. I pulled out my phone and ordered an Uber to the bus station. My destination. New York City, just an hour away, but might as well have been another planet. I had a friend from high school, Zoe, who had offered her couch if I ever needed it. Been too proud to accept before. Now pride was a luxury I couldn't afford, as the Uber arrived. I took one last look at the house where I'd grown up feeling like I was never enough. "Watch me," I whispered. A promise to myself more than a threat to them. Just watch me. Zoe's apartment in Bushwick was everything my parents would have hated. A fifth-floor walk-up in a converted warehouse with exposed pipes, mismatched furniture, and 3 roommates sharing a single bathroom. I loved it immediately. "You can stay as long as you need," Zoe said, clearing art supplies from the lumpy futon. "That would be my bed for the foreseeable future. Just chip in for utilities when you can. I'll find a job right away, I promised. I won't be a burden." Zoe rolled her eyes. "You're not a burden, Jess. You're my friend. And from what you've told me, you needed to get out of that house." That first night, lying on the futon with the sounds of Brooklyn filtering through the thin windows, I felt both terrified and free. I had exactly $1,700 to my name, no college degree, and a resume that consisted primarily of making lattes. But I also had no one telling me what I couldn't do, what I wouldn't achieve, who I was supposed to be. The next morning, I hit the ground running. I applied for every coffee shop job in a 3-mile radius, plus retail positions, restaurant work, anything that would pay the bills. By the end of the week, I had secured a barista position at an independent coffee shop in Williamsburg and weekend shifts at a vintage clothing store. Between the 2 jobs, I was working nearly 60 hours a week. But I was supporting myself. I called my grandmother every Sunday as promised. She never pressured me to contact my parents, though she gently mentioned that they were worried. I doubted that. Angry, embarrassed, inconvenienced, yes. But worried implied caring, and I wasn't convinced they cared about me as much as they cared about the idea of me, the daughter they thought they should have. "Your mother asks about you," my grandmother said during one call, 3 months after I'd left. "What does she want to know?" I asked, sitting on the fire escape outside Zoe's apartment, watching the sunset paint Brooklyn in shades of gold and pink. "If you're safe, if you're eating, if you're happy." I considered this. Tell her I'm all three. But I'm not ready to talk to her yet. My grandmother sighed. "Time heals, Jessie. But only if you let it." Maybe she was right, but the wounds were still too fresh. Every time I thought about calling home, I remembered my father's words. "You're on track to be nothing." Absolutely nothing. I was determined to prove him wrong, though I wasn't sure how yet. Working to service jobs wasn't exactly the triumphant success story I'd imagined, but it was a start. I was surviving on my own terms. Photography remained my passion. On my rare days off, I wandered the city with my camera, secondhand Canon I'd bought in high school with birthday money. I captured everything. The geometric precision of skyscrapers against blue skies, the chaotic energy of street markets, the quiet dignity of elderly chess players in Washington Square Park. I created an Instagram account for my work, more as a personal portfolio than anything else. 6 months into my New York life, something unexpected happened. A customer at the coffee shop noticed me taking artistic photos of the latte art before serving drinks. "You've got a good eye," he said, accepting his cappuccino. "The composition, the lighting, it's not amateur work." "Thanks," I replied, used to brushing off compliments. "Just a hobby." "Do you have a portfolio?" I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and showed him my Instagram. He scrolled through it with increasing interest. "I'm Marcus Chen," he said, handing me a business card. "I run a small creative agency in Dumbo. We're looking for a photography assistant, someone to help on shoots, manage equipment, learn the ropes." Interested? I stared at the card. Marcus Chen Creative. It was a real company. "I don't have formal training," I admitted, "or a degree." He shrugged. "I care about eye and hustle, not degrees. Your feed shows the first. Working 2 jobs while pursuing photography shows the second." He gestured around the coffee shop. "The position pays better than this, though not by much to start. But it's a foot in the door." That night, I called my grandmother with the news. "I knew it," she said, her voice warm with pride. "I always told your parents you had an artist's soul." "It's just an assistant position," I cautioned. "I'll be carrying equipment and getting coffee for the real photographers." Everyone starts somewhere, Jessie. The important thing is you're. Starting the job at Marcus Chen Creative was demanding but exhilarating. I worked alongside photographers, shooting everything from product layouts for retail catalogs to corporate headshots to food styling for restaurant menus. I absorbed everything I could: lighting techniques, composition principles, how to direct, subjects, post-production workflows. I stayed late, volunteered for the jobs no one wanted, and asked endless questions. Marcus proved to be a demanding but fair mentor. "You have raw talent," he told me during my 3-month review. "But talent without technique is just potential. You need to develop discipline." Okay. Under his guidance, I began to find my voice as a photographer. I was particularly drawn to environmental portraiture, capturing people in the contexts that defined them, telling their stories through visual composition. On weekends, I started a personal project photographing small business owners in their shops around the city, documenting their passion and craftsmanship. A year into my job at the agency, Marcus assigned me my first solo client, a small Brooklyn bakery needing product photography for their website. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was mine. When the bakery owner raved about the images, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I felt like a professional, not just an assistant. That night, I sat on the roof of my new apartment. I'd moved out of Zoe's place once I could afford my own room in a shared house and called my grandmother. I did my first professional shoot today, I told her, on my own. I'm so proud of you, Jessie, she said. Your grandfather would have been, too? There was a pause, and I knew what was coming next. Your parents ask about you every time I see them. I sighed. What do they want to know? The same things? If you're safe, if you're happy. She hesitated. Your mother saw your Instagram. She follows you under a different name. Surprised? Me. She does. She shows me your photos sometimes. She's proud, Jessie, even if she doesn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to feel about this. Part of me was touched that my mother cared enough to secretly follow my work. Another part felt violated, as if she were spying on me. And a third part, the wounded child who still craved parental approval. A complicated satisfaction knowing that she was witnessing my growth from afar. I'm not ready, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not yet. As my second year in New York progressed, my career began to gain momentum. Marcus gave me more solo assignments. My personal project on small business owners caught the attention of a local arts magazine which ran a feature on my work. I was invited to participate in a group exhibition at a small gallery in Chelsea, nothing major, but a legitimate exhibition nonetheless. On opening night, I stood nervously by my photographs, watching strangers examine my work. A woman in her 50s approached, studying my artist statement before turning to me. You capture the dignity of work beautifully, she said. There's something very American about these portraits, the entrepreneurial spirit, the craftsmanship. Thank you, I replied, warmed by her thoughtful observation. I'm Eleanor Simmons, she said, extending her hand. I'm a photo editor at The New Yorker. My heart skipped. The New Yorker was legendary, a pinnacle of photojournalism and cultural commentary. Jessica Thompson, I managed, shaking her hand. It's an honor to meet you. This series has potential for broader development, she said, gesturing to my photographs. Have you considered expanding it beyond Brooklyn? I've thought about it, I admitted. Documenting small business owners across different American communities. Exploring how craftsmanship and entrepreneurship vary by region and culture. She nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of project that interests us. Here's my card. Send me a proper pitch if you're serious. That night, too excited to sleep, I drafted and redrafted a pitch for an expanded photo essay series. I called it American Makers, a visual exploration of craftsmanship and small-scale entrepreneurship across diverse American communities. The next morning, before I could overthink it, I sent it to Eleanor Simmons. 3 days later, she called. We want to commission the first installment as a photo essay. We can offer a modest budget for travel to 3 cities of your choosing. If it resonates with readers, we'll discuss expanding the series. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you serious? Completely. This is the kind of fresh perspective we look for. You have an empathetic eye, Jessica. You see people, not just subjects. Over the next 2 months, I traveled to Detroit, Michigan, Asheville, North Carolina, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, photographing craftspeople, repair shop owners, small batch manufacturers, and artisans. I captured their hands, their tools, their workspaces, and most importantly, their faces etched with the pride and struggle of making a living through making things. When the photo essay was published in The New Yorker, my name appeared in the magazine's prestigious pages. Marcus threw a celebration at the agency. Zoe and my other friends took me out for drinks. My grandmother called, crying with pride. Your grandfather's New Yorker subscription ran for 40 years, she said, and now his granddaughter is in it. He would have framed this issue. I felt a pang of sadness that my grandfather hadn't lived to see this moment. And for the first time in over 2 years, I felt a similar pang about my parents. Did they know? Had my grandmother told them? Would they care if they knew? I pushed the thought away. This was my moment, my achievement. I had done this without them, despite them. I didn't need their approval anymore. Or at least, that's what I told myself as I fell asleep that night. A copy of the magazine open on my nightstand. My name in print, like a talisman against all the times I'd been told I would amount to nothing. The New Yorker. Photo essay transformed my career. Within months, I went from assistant to associate photographer at Marcus's agency, with assignments from Smithsonian Magazine and major corporations. At 23, just 4 years after fleeing my parents' home, I had established myself as a photographer. With a distinctive style. My grandmother still served as my only connection to family, gently mentioning that my parents had seen my work and kept my New Yorker issue on their coffee table for weeks. Then came the email that changed everything. Time magazine wanted me to document communities adapting to climate change across America. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, 2 months traveling to 12 states, capturing American resilience in the face of environmental challenges. My final destination was Alaska, photographing native Alaskan villages responding to thawing permafrost. Under the guidance of Elder Joseph Apangalook, I documented their innovative hybrid energy system and intergenerational knowledge transfer. During an ice-checking expedition, disaster struck. The ice beneath me cracked and gave way, plunging me into freezing Arctic waters. Elder Apangalook and the community acted swiftly, forming a human chain to pull me from the deadly cold. They saved my life using the same traditional knowledge they applied to climate adaptation. As I recovered in Anchorage, preparing to return to New York, my phone rang with an unexpected caller. My mother. They had seen a news story about my accident. Time photographer rescued by native Alaskan elders. After ice collapse, with my name in the headline. "Jessica, we were so worried," my mother said, her voice cracking. "I'm so proud of you." "What?" "You're doing your photography. It's important work." Then my father spoke words I never thought I'd hear. "I was wrong about you. The things you've accomplished matters. I'm sorry I couldn't see your potential." They asked for a chance to reconnect on my terms. As I sat in that Anchorage hotel room, the ice around my heart began to crack. Not unlike the Arctic ice that had given way beneath me. Later, I found the New York Times article with my name on the front page, not for my photography as I'd once dreamed, but as the subject of a story about climate change, indigenous knowledge, and survival. 6 months later, my Time photo essay was published to critical acclaim. The final spread included a photo taken of me with Elder Apangalook after my rescue, alongside my own images of climate resilience across America. At the gallery opening celebrating the publication, I stood surrounded by the photographs that told America's climate story. But the most meaningful moment came when I spotted my parents entering tentatively, looking both proud and nervous. "You came," I said, meeting them halfway. "We wouldn't miss it," my father replied. "Not again." Our reconciliation wasn't instantaneous or perfect. We were learning to know each other as adults, me as the photographer I'd become, them as parents who had learned the hard way that success comes in many forms. As we stood together looking at my photographs, my mother squeezed my hand. "When I saw your name in the newspaper that day, I felt terrified and proud all at once. Terrified we might lose you before making things right. Proud of the remarkable woman you've become without our help, despite our mistakes." "Not entirely. Without your help," I admitted. "Your doubts made me more determined. In a strange way, I needed to prove you wrong to discover who I really am." My father nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is the freedom to find our own path. I thought about Elder Apangalook's words after saving me. Survival often depends on community, not just individual strength. He was right. I had survived and thrived on my own. But true resilience included the courage to rebuild what was broken, including family. My name had indeed appeared in the newspaper, though not how any of us expected. But the headline that mattered wasn't the one in the New York Times. It was the one I was writing for myself, one frame at a time.